After spending 3 incredibly beautiful days at Agia Scortia's seaside town, we had enough of beach time and we were ready to explore the beautiful town of Corfu, also known as Kerkyra in Greek language. Corfu town has a population of around 40,000 residents and has played an important role in Greek history since antique time. Because of its great strategic position at the mouth of the Adriatic Sea, Corfu was occupied by the Romans, the Goths, the Byzantines, the Normans, the Neapolitan Angevins, the Venetians, the French, and the British. All of them came and went and left a big impact on cultural heritage of Corfu Island. But the first thing we visited upon our arrival in the town had actually to do with my home country Serbia and the history of the First World War. You're probably confused, but I will explain you what I mean with that. Friendship between Greece and Serbia has a long tradition, not only because of sharing the same Orthodox religion, but also because of historical facts, hospitality, and culture that bonds us since many years. The Serbian Museum in Corfu town, where we are now, exhibits the rare material that shows the Serbian soldiers' tragedy during the First World War. The Austro-German attack on Serbia on October 6, 1915, resulted in the destruction of the Serbian army and its withdrawal to Albania, to the island of Corfu. 250,000 people were lost from the daily battles, the cold weather, the hunger, the diseases, and being held captive. From 18th January until 21st February 1916, 43 large Allied ships transported the remnants of the Serbian army and thousands of civilians to Corfu. The remaining of the Serbian army, about 150,000 people, together with the government, found refuge and compassion here after the collapse of the Serbian. Under the fear that the Serbian army could become a source of infection for the islanders, the Allies took drastic measures on the small island of Lazareto, opposite the port of Corfu. There, they set up a transit center where all those who arrived were disinfected. They also set up a hospital for infectious diseases. The sea around the island of Vido became a big and sad part of Serbian history. During the first days of the army's stay in Vido, about 100 people died every day. First, they were buried on rocky shores and in shallow tombs. But when the dead multiplied dramatically, people were consequently transported in the boats of a French medical ship and buried at the bottom of the sea, where they remain forever. For me, it was very emotional to visit the Serbian Museum house in Corfu, since I knew about the tragic part of our history that we learn in school during history class, and also in classes of Serbian literature, art and music, since many Serbian artists were inspired by this event and made some masterpieces coming directly from their soul. Okay, time to continue. To bring back some positive thoughts after the visit of the Serbian house, we went directly to the city market, where I immediately felt better, just by looking at the fresh local vegetables. My all-time favorite veggie, zucchini. Lot of aromatic herbs and greens, colorful fruits, and so much more. The market is located in the heart of the town, just close to the new fortress. One big part of the market is dedicated to the fish, And you maybe know how much I love eating fresh fish while being at the seaside. This is tuna fish, so big. And of course, local Greek market would never be complete without tons of tasty, delicious olives. Tell me, do you love olives? We bought a few packages and olive oil for back home. The nearby new fortress, despite its name New, brings us back to the far 15th century when this massive fort was built. Placed just above the old port, the new fortress has many underground tunnels that run to the other fortress in the old town Corfu, called Old Fortress. Under the supervision of the Italian architect Francesco Vitelli, the new fortress was built between 1576 and 1645. Many other buildings were destroyed in order to have enough material to build this fortress. When you reach the top of the fortress, the beautiful scenery opens in front of you. From here, in the far distance you can see Albania, neighbor country from where we actually took a ferry over the Ionian Sea to get to the island of Corfu. You can also see the island of Vido, where the Serbian soldiers were transported during the First World War. Now, time for the first break of the day. Although souvlaki looked really tasty and smelled delicious, on this warm sunny day, the only thing we craved for was actually some iced coffee. The old town of Corfu is a very romantic and charming area, and a great example of Venetian and Byzantine art. Many houses here have been built of local stones with wooden attics and handmade tiles. Luckily, the number of buildings damaged by the Second World War is not so big, so many buildings are good preserved and are still reminding us of the past. Nothing without old local artisan patisserie. Thousands of small paved streets and squares of the old town are filled with traditional shops with local clothing brands and handmade products. One of my favorite things to do in the old town of cities around the world is just to get lost in narrow old residential streets where locals hang their lingerie between wall sides of the houses, and at every corner you can smell through the open windows the tasty cooked lunch dishes. After visiting Church of St. Spiridon, resting place of the island's patron saint, built in far 1596, we entered one of the most beautiful narrow streets in the old town, where this charming pink Vespa is placed, and where as well very nice coffee shop called Cabanas Cafe is located. We decided to come to Cabanas Cafe next morning for the coffee break. My friends, I felt so inspired to film in the old town of Corfu, especially with all the pretty light-covered squares, picturesque balconies, flowers at every corner, and just all those Greek vibes. Our next stop during this long Corfu day was the Museum of Asian Art. The museum is situated in the palace of St. Michael and St. George, built by the British in 1815 as a residence for the High Commissioner and seat of the Senate. Inside, the exhibition represents Japanese prints, Indian sculptures, and many other Oriental treasures. But unfortunately, on our one-day visit to the city, we didn't have time to enter inside. But the building is worth visiting, even if only admiring from the outside. In the late afternoon hours, we went to visit the second fortress of Corfu town, the Old Fortress. The Old Fortress is huge and impressive, and it was the first thing we saw from our ferry from Albania while approaching Corfu Island. It was constructed by the Venetians in the 15th century on the site of a former Byzantine castle. In one of the rooms that were opened for the public, we saw this amazing collection of Byzantine art. Really impressive. At the top of the fortress, there is this pretty lighthouse and a magnificent sunset view over the islands around, Albania and Corfu town as well. Watching the sunset from here felt really peaceful, meditative and relaxing. The church of Agios Georgios was built in 1840 for the religious needs of the English soldiers. The old fortress is connected by this 60-meter-long bridge that stands 15 meters above the fosse, locally known as Santa Fossa. After passing by through the Park Esplanade, nearby the old fortress, we arrived at this beautiful big square called Liston. This impressive building of Liston was built during the French Corfu occupation by the French engineer Recep, who was inspired by the Rue Rivoli in Paris. The Liston Gallery is full of nice fancy coffee shops and restaurants. The area here is pretty expensive, but very nice for taking a walk. And when the sun slowly settled down, it was finally time for dinner. We were very hungry, so we had tasty pita with tzatziki, tomatoes mixed with paprika and feta, Ugi had souvlaki, and I had, of course, anchovies. It was delicious. Kalinichta, everyone. Kalimera from Corfu. Good morning, everyone. This is the view from our hotel room. Since this morning we didn't have much time before our flight back to Nuremberg, we only did a short walk through the old town. Many local shops were selling natural sea sponges. The Greeks have been using sea sponges for personal hygiene and for cleaning their houses since the antique times. The use of sponges is first attested in the 8th century before Christ by the epic poet Homer. We also met some of the neighbors, looking very pretty from early in the morning. Okay, just for the record, I'm really not a cat person. I've always been a dog person, but these little kitties just looked so sweet and adorable. For the morning coffee, we went to that pretty street with pink Vespa, where Cabanas Cafe is located. Cappuccino was very good, and the people working here were very kind and nice.
Okay, in our Instagram we write in
If I'm ever coming back to Corfu, I'm for sure visiting Cabanas coffee shop again. Before running to the airport, Udi had some chocolate Greek ice cream. And me? Well, I just couldn't leave the Corfu island without eating one more time my favorite anchovies. That's it, my friends. That was summertime in Corfu, Greece. Take care and see you in the next video. Bye bye!